Good evening, members of council and any viewing audience we have on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. We'll call the meeting to order. Before we start, I'd like to read our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of the Caldwell First Nation of the Three Fires Confederacy and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll have a moment of silent reflection and then we will stand to hear the national anthem. Thank you. Members of council, you've had a chance to look at items on the agenda. Is there any disclosures of conflict of interest? None noted. That'll be reflected in the minutes. A motion to receive the minutes of the regular council meeting held February 8th, 2022 be adopted as presented. Councillor Ekpata and Councillor Reno, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Mayor's comments. I have some. Some's not the best news, but I'd like to address a couple of recent incidences at the Vollmer complex involving youth and adults who displayed inappropriate behavior and have been disrespectful to staff and others. There is zero tolerance for any forms of harassment or inappropriate behavior at our municipal buildings. The safety of our staff and patrons is important to us, and we strive to provide an enjoyable experience for all. On a positive note, we are hiring multiple positions in the town, including summer jobs, positions at the Vollmer complex, and also volunteer firefighters. Visit the employment page on our website for current postings and information on how to apply. A reminder that the public engagement campaign for the 3 fire station model will be open until Sunday, March 6th. View our plans on the Place Speak website to improve the level of fire service as our town grows. As residents of our town, your engagement in local initiatives is important to us, so please take a look at the information and share your comments with us in the coming weeks. We have no presentations. First item on the agenda is the fleet purchase. Mr. Beggs.
Good evening, members of council. The first report tonight is regarding a new street sweeper purchase for the Public Works Department. This was part of the 2022 approved budget, and the approved budget amount was $450,000. We've received pricing and are recommending that we proceed with the purchase from Joe Johnson Equipment at a total cost of $445,605 plus HST. And just a note on this unit for delivery wise, we are hoping to get it relatively soon, but a lot of our delivery times are quite long. So this could be a unit that we may not even see this summer, but I'm hopeful that we will get it as soon as we can. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Beggs. Councillor Dicho Spagnolo.
Thank you. Through you to just Mr. Beggs. What's the life expectancy on this machine?
Typically, what we've never owned this machine, so we don't have any knowledge of our own. But speaking to other municipalities, we are hoping to get about a 12-year lifespan out of it, depending on how things go with it. So it's similar to what we see with our larger trucks and that kind of thing.
Councillor Renault.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mark. And Mark, what is our typical street sweeping schedule? Do we do it once a year, twice a year? What should residents expect?
So currently, what we do is we contract out the services. And in the past, we would only make it around one time a year, and we would do some localized areas a bit more. A couple of years ago, we got that budget increased so that we could do it a couple times a year. And what this will allow is for it to be done a lot more frequently than that. Like I'm hoping that we can get around 4 or 5, maybe even more times a year. It'll kind of depend on what we need to do. It's also going to be very handy it has a vacuum on the back, so we can clean out things like catch basins. It's kind of like a small vacuum truck. So it's useful for that sort of thing. And even during, festivals and that kind of thing, it'll give us some flexibility where if we need to get in and just clean out a parking lot or something at the town hall, it's a lot easier than trying to get the contractor to come in for a small job like that.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Any other council questions? Council's pleasure. Moved by Councillor Dicho Spagnolo, support by Councillor Renault. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Essex Windsor Solid Waste Authority Regional Food Organics and Biosolids Waste Management Project. Mr. Militia.
How about now? Perfect. Thank you. The report before council is a follow-up report coming out of the March 17th council meeting, or the December 14th council meeting, where representatives of the Solid Waste Authority presented the bioorganics report to council. So what you see before you is a bit of the information that we have garnered to date. We have certainly after the December 14th meeting, the Solid Waste Authority staff as well as their board were able to reconvene and pass some further resolutions in regard to the reports that were presented to their board, which are included as part of the report. We again, from our perspective, financially, perhaps just to touch on the financial implications. This is legislatively driven. Requirements put on by the province of Ontario with respect to handling bioorganics. There is a graduated method, if you will, for each municipality. We fall into what would be the category 2 side of the approach in terms of dealing with organics. Early estimates at this point are anywhere between 300,000 and about 1.2 million. I realize that that's quite a large range, but at this point, until further investigation is completed by the Solid Waste Authority and or the municipality, it is certainly the range that we're working with at this point, because there are a variety of options in terms of dealing with the organic and biosolid waste. The whole premise behind this program is to reduce the amount of items that can be put through compost. and avoid putting those through the actual landfill and dealing with them in another environmentally friendly manner. So that's really the reasoning for that. Like we've seen on a number of occasions, and again, part of our strategic plan is to be to certainly view things more from the environmental lens, is certainly we're finding that certain items are more expensive when they're more green. And that's just the reality of our situation. And again, part of the reality of looking towards the line in the future in trying to determine what's best for certainly our kids and our grandkids as we go forward. What's clear is that as part of this approach is that a regional approach across the Windsor-Essex region will likely result in a much better financial result than what we'd have to do it if we do it alone. There's certainly some economies of scale that are through that can be achieved through that. So with that, the Solid Waste Authority did provide a report. Again, has been attached to my report to council regarding some of the more particulars with respect to the bioorganics collection and disposal. I will say that this is an area where the municipality contracts the Essex Windsor Solid Waste Authority to provide that service. We don't have any local expertise to deal with that as we go through. But again, the recommendations before council are obviously to receive the report, to endorse a regional approach for the compliance of the legislation regarding the food, organics, and bio waste management side. Also, again, to endorse the approach outlined in the January 6, 2022 report that was presented to the Solid Waste Authority on January 12th. And the last one is obviously is that we believe that it's probably an appropriate time that the Solid Waste Authority and the County of Essex begin to investigate a more comprehensive approach to the collection and management of waste that would be garbage, organics, and recycling altogether. So we believe that that's the appropriate approach to go forward. Again, there is some information that's been provided as part of the report. I won't go through it all, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Militia. We'll start with Councillor Reno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Joe, just to you, concerning that last little thing that you just said, which was kind of encompassed in recommendation D. I mean, are we going to be looking to the county to take over garbage collection, knowing that it's one of our most prized services next to police?
I would say to you, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say that we are looking at every option because we are finding that there's a cost escalations on the garbage collection side, as well as certainly what we're seeing with the new organics legislation. I would say that right now, at this point, we're at the investigative stage. We want to look to see what is available. This will be a longer term process, as I believe we've just had an RFP issued and opened with respect to the garbage collection. And so we anticipate that, you know, this will be a longer process where we can start to phase this in if we choose to go in that way. Again, there's a long road ahead, I will say, and we're right at the very beginning of it. So I'd be, at this point, all options are on the table. We want to find the most economically beneficial option. However, we want to consider what the service levels are to our community as well. So we're trying to find that balance.
Okay, that's great. I look forward to that coming forward.
Any other council questions? Councillor Carrick.
Just quick comments, maybe not so much questions, but I understand and I'm sure we're turning over every leaf to look at capital. If this is being forced upon us, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but because the provincial government is bringing this down on us, that perhaps there's some capital dollars that might become available. Have we heard anything about that at all? I'm sure you would have maybe told us by now, but just to keep after them, just a question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are looking at other options for funding. Certainly, again, there is things that we can control locally as well as regionally. There are programs out there, particularly under the green initiatives of the various funding mechanisms, both at the provincial and federal levels, that may open up for something like this. We are turning over every rock and kicking over every rock if we can. And we're trying to find everything we can. We believe, I mean, one of the things that we understand as coming through this process is that, much like we do in LaSalle, this is a rather hefty increase to absorb all in 1 year. We'd be looking to phase that in over time, use some of our reserves to cushion that in. It is something that's coming. That's just the reality of our situation. I know that in conversations with my counterparts at the various municipalities here locally, we're all dealing with the same issues, both whether it be on the waste collection side, whether it be with the organics and biosolids, and even on the recycling side in terms of trying to deal with those. So I know that the Solid Waste Authority is also very apt to deal with many of these things and are looking forward to trying to facilitate the most appropriate solution as we go forward. But we are trying to look at every grant, every possible grant opportunity to help offset some of these costs.
That goes without saying, and we get it, but I just want to make sure that the residents understand that as well, that we're going hard at trying to find some money. Thank you.
It'll be interesting next report, next council meeting, there'll be a report on how many grants we've applied for and received. So it'll be interesting information for council to receive and the viewing audience as well. Any other council questions? Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you. Through you to Joe. I'm looking at the timeline that's here for the processing facility, and it's looking like it could be a total of 4 to 6 years. I know that when we do our annual budgeting, we're very good at setting up reserves. Is this something that we might be starting to look at now, is to establish a reserve to get it started because it is such a chunk of money?
Yeah, absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. We will be looking at trying to cushion this impact in over the longer term and understanding that it may take some time to get the collection and disposal of the biosolids up and running. We will be looking towards moving that forward. It is going to be a balance, though, as I say, at budget time, as to how much we can put for things that are coming, as well as deal with the issues that we have on hand presently. I see Mr. Langlois is on. I'm not sure if he's got a further comment he'd like to make.
I was just gonna kind of reiterate what you were just saying. We as soon as we know something like this is occurring, we try to factor it in. So, looking at the different ranges, I think it's on page 20 of the report that was provided. In 2025, it could range from close to 400,000 to 810,000. So we're going to take those numbers, divide it by 3, and start building up our reserve to build it up over time so that we're ready and don't take the hit all in 1 year. And then, as Mr. Militia mentioned, we are looking at all avenues. There is quite a bit of green funding sometimes, so perhaps we could partner with the Essex-Windsor Solid Waste Authority. They like joint ventures, so there could be potentially some larger capital grants that this may qualify under, but we will keep looking for any funding opportunities to help us through this.
Okay, I know you guys are good at finding the grants, and writing really good requests for grants. So I'll keep my fingers crossed that we can do it. Thank you.
I sit on the Essex-Windsor Solid Waste Authority board, and there has been no mention of grants or anything coming our way yet, but of course, if we see anything, we'll apply. Any other council questions? Council's pleasure on the 4 recommendations. Deputy Mayor Malash. Move. Support. Councillor Akpata. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Militia. Bylaw Committee meeting January 18, 2022. The minutes of the bylaw meeting held January 18, 2022 be received and that committee matters be approved. Councillor Deputy Mayor Malash, anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor Ronnie. Nothing to add. It's pretty straightforward. That meeting was very quick. We did add a note at the bottom to have some more discussions with LaSalle Police to assist our bylaw department after business hours and on weekends. And we'll kind of look further into that over the next few months with our police department and hopefully work together on some sort of solutions.
For the record, I spoke to Chief Davies about that matter, and he will be in discussion with myself moving forward. Okay. Council's moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, support Councillor Reno. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. The fire report, Councillor Reno.
It was a fairly quick meeting as well. We went over the fourth quarter reports, and like the third quarter, the numbers are up a little bit from last year. Last year was a little bit lower than the year before, but we're still trending up right now. But everything's under control, and a lot more training has been getting done, and they've stayed on top of that, as well as we all know, more fire master plan recommendations are moving forward now. So it was a good meeting, but just so everyone knows that call volume is up a little bit right now.
Thank you, Councillor Reno. I'm assuming you're moving the report.
I would love to.
Support. Councillor Di-Spagnolo. Discussion, questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Water and wastewater meeting, January 25th, 2022. Adopt the minutes of the meeting held January 25th. Councillor Reno, Deputy Mayor Malash, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Information items to be received, Q3 and Q4 council member attendance, meeting attendance. Councillor Reno, questions? Move. Support, Councillor Ekpata, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. And the summary of reports to council. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash. Support, Councillor Carrick, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Bylaws, for the record, we are not looking at bylaw 8670. That's the first one. So it'll be 8671, 8672, and 8673. All three readings, three bylaws. Move Councillor Ekpata, support Councillor Di-Spagnolo, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Council questions. Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you. Through you to possibly Joe. I've had some residents calling to find out if we have any plans for doing some flooding mitigation along Front Road, specifically Senator Street. I know that we have talked about issues along there in the past. We've talked with the Small Coast Project doing some water upgrades over the next 5 to 7 years. Do we know if we have anything on the go in there right now, or anything that?
Mr. Mara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the question, Councillor Desjardins. There is a study currently ongoing for the Front Road area. We're looking at the entirety of Front Road from Turkey Creek all the way to our southern limit. It is being done in 3 stages. It is a public process, and that is being available on our website for some time now. So stage 1 concentrates in the area from roughly the area between I lost my train of thought, between Turkey Creek southerly to about Kenwood is stage 1. Stage 2 is the area up to about the Marintet Drain, and stage 3 is everything south of the Marintet Drain. We are working with the consultant to bring those forward. So certainly in the coming months, stage 1 should be coming forward, and stage 2 should follow shortly thereafter. And Senator and Juanita fall in that stage 2 area, so they will be folded into as part of that process. So as we come up, the communication will be let go out to the public, and that is the appropriate time for those residents to get involved and provide input and see what it might be available for flood mitigation, flood solutions, and things of that nature. This is part of that larger DMAF grant that we received. So certainly we are working through that process to identify what the solutions might be and bringing those forward to at the appropriate time to work out what the solutions can be built and things of that nature to fit within the DMAF grant.
Okay, thank you. I'll let the residents know to look at that again and keep an eye on it so they're updated. And I have a second question, something I was wondering about. I know with how cold it was a couple of weeks ago, we've talked about skating on the retention ponds, how it's not safe. And I get that because of the water underneath and so on. I'd like to find out about putting life rings around the at the retention ponds, maybe one per retention pond or something. Just part of an emergency plan if something unfortunately did happen, that because it's so unpredictable in there, if there's something that we could do along that line.
Mr. Militia will take that one.
Thank you.
I just perhaps provide a more of an introduction and then provide it, then shift over to Mr. Mara or Mr. Osborne. I know that there are a number of regulations around when we deploy those life safety devices. And at sometimes they can be counterproductive in terms of keeping people off the ice when they feel that security is there. But I will turn it over to Mr. Mara, and then I did see Mr. Osborne pop on the screen just for a second.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly that probably warrants a report to come back to council on that matter. I believe there was a previous request some years ago regarding life rings, and there was a report put together on that. So I think it's time to maybe revisit and look at that. There are a number of concerns relative to providing life rings, ensuring that they're tested annually, that they're still there, that they don't get vandalized, people aren't tossing them around and playing with them, or they're lost. So they become a constant operational maintenance concern because they're just not there when they're actually required because they disappear from vandalism. So certainly, if council wishes, we can prepare a report, bring it back, and let council know what that cost might be, what the requirements are, and certainly how other municipalities are faring with that type of scenario.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, Peter.
Any other council questions? Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Sorry, I'm on my phone because I lost internet in my house. So I'm doing this kind of awkward this time. Just a quick question related to COVID. I know a lot of the community is starting to ask questions about our facilities and any changes that are coming in the next few weeks. Is there any update as to what we could expect come, I guess, March 1st? And then also as it relates to council meetings, when we may be coming back to in-person meetings?
Mr. Militia.
So we are developing a plan to sort of, again, Ontario has the Reopening Ontario Act and plan. We're developing a very similar plan in terms of what we expect here in LaSalle to occur. Again, we should be in a position to let certainly members of council and the public know what that process will be over in the coming days and weeks. I will say that the next target date is March 1st for the next reduction in restrictions, assuming that the current pandemic conditions continue on the positive track. We expect that going forward, again, we are reviewing that internally to see what is occurring. We also have, there is also the Windsor Essex County Health Unit also has a number of letter of instructions that are also part of the mix along with the legislation. So we're looking for some clarity there. I think we're getting there, and we should have some answers towards the end of this week, which hopefully we'll be able to provide the public in terms of what to expect when attending the Volmer starting on March 1st and beyond. With respect to the council meetings, we find ourselves in a bit of the same position we were in kind of November, where we've got a plan developed to test some of our hybrid meeting model information. So we plan to do that in the next couple of council meetings. That would be in March. And then hopefully sometime in April, get to a point where we'll be able to open to the public. There are some challenges with that we need to kind of overcome as well. This is all based on a improving condition with respect to the pandemic. Like I said, we're in this position. I'm almost afraid to say, quite frankly, I don't want to jinx it, but we were in this position kind of in November, hoping that we'd be able to have in-person budget sessions, but that didn't happen. So again, the one thing about this pandemic is things change quickly and rapidly. And so we're trying to, garner that and be prepared for that, as well as be prepared to reopen as well. So we're all looking forward to kind of getting back to normal, whatever that might be, but certainly something different than we're in right now. It's just a matter of a little bit of patience and time as we get back up and running again.
Okay.
Any other council questions? Statements by council members? Notices of motion? Councillor Carrick.
Sorry, Your Worship, just reports from committees.
Oh, okay, sure.
Just to let you know that Orca did pass its budget at 2.5%, and hopefully it passes all the way around, and that it does give the town of LaSalle a little minor savings as to what we budgeted for, $3,000 or $4,000. So better than nothing. So it's a well worth and responsible budget as well as ours was. So we thank everybody for their help and participation, and look forward to some good stuff. Work on.
Thanks, Councillor Carrick. Appreciate the update. Okay, we're confirmatory bylaw. Something different tonight. All three readings. Move Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Reno, all in favor. That carries. Thank you. You have your scheduled meetings, and we'll call the meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone. Thanks for attending and watching on YouTube for any